Then Daniel was brought in before the king. And the king said to Daniel, "So you are Daniel, one of the exiles of Judah, whom my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard of you, and that a spirit of the gods is in you, and that enlightenment, understanding, and excellent wisdom are found in you. But I have heard that you can give interpretations and solve problems. Now, if you are able to read the writing and tell me its interpretation, you shall be clothed in purple, have a chain of gold around your neck, and rank third in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered in the presence of the king, "Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king, and let him know the interpretation. You have exalted yourself against the Lord of heaven. The vessels of his temple have been brought in before you, and you and your lords, your wives, your concubines have been drinking wine from them. You have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see or hear or know. But the God in whose power is your very breath, and to whom belong all your ways, you have not honored. So from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed: Mene, Mene, Tekel, and Parsin. This is the interpretation of the matter. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That very night, Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. I've been wondering how many people know this story, so I asked Dan up here, Dan who read some of it. I said, "Dan, did you know this story?" "Yeah, I knew this story. It's in Daniel." So, of course, it seems that everywhere in my news feed these days, I hear of the writing on the wall. The writing is on the wall. I hear it all the time. The writing is on the wall. This phrase signals that for Democrats, say, or Republicans, for the president or the Congress or the courts or this department or that politician, that policy, that any or all of them, the jig is up. The bill is coming due. Every time I hear the writing is on the wall, I find myself correcting in my head the commentator, the journalist, the congressperson, the political pundit. It's not the writing on the wall, I say to myself, to them. It's the handwriting on the wall. I say it almost aloud. Don't forget the hand. Now, granted, few do know much of anything about the reference of this saying, the handwriting on the wall, its background in Scripture. Few Christians do too, I'll wager. These verses of Daniel don't even merit a place in the New Common Lectionary. I was looking around for something to kind of grab a hold of. It's not there. Whose purpose, after all, the lectionary is to help us orbit around the twin testaments, Jewish and Christian, so we don't just always land in the pages of the Gospels, but rather we engage the whole sweep of biblical time and truth. Indeed, my only personal connection to Daniel chapter 5 was some big blockbuster movie, the name of which escapes me, from my childhood though, in which Belshazzar's hall is visited mid-course of apostasy by those mysterious words on that great wall, but written by the hand. Don't forget the hand. Now, hands happen to be having a moment these days in cinema and streaming, if you think about it. There is the hand, the right-hand man in the Game of Thrones saga, the hand. And there's the three-finger salute in the Hunger Games trilogy. And let's not forget, trending now, Wednesday Addams series. What fun would that be without Thing? Or going back a bit, we have jazz hands, which we love, appearing prominently in movies like Bring It On and Glee, or shows like The Office or Archer. We could go on. We could go on all day. What is, though, the story of the handwriting on the wall? It is near the end of the exile in Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king at the time of the carting away of particularly the elite of Judah to Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's long dead, and the current king of Babylon, Belshazzar, who actually is not Nebuchadnezzar's son, but his grandson, the son of Nebuchadnezzar is off doing something else, and so Belshazzar is the king, at least for a while, not for long. Anyway, Belshazzar is nearer than he thinks to his own demise, with Persia at the gates. But Belshazzar seems utterly clueless about any of it as he throws a debauched banquet in his great hall. Debauched, first of all, by just all the drinking to cognitive oblivion. But this depravity, tied, as we will see, to wealthy privilege and excess, it's only the beginning. It pales in the text. Next to the defilement of the holy relics of the Hebrew temple, vessels of gold and silver spirited away from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar a generation or two before. Holy vessels, Belshazzar orders to be brought to the hall. Bring them on. Why? So his entourage can drink from them. And it is precisely in this act of desecration that the mysterious hand appears and begins the holy reckoning. What reckoning? Well, let's start with the words that are drawn on the plaster of the wall, and we can work backwards from there. Three Hebrew words in particular we're talking about. Mene has to do with counting. Tekel has to do with weighing, and Perez has to do with dividing. The king and the empire have been counted, they have been weighed and found deficient. They have failed the audit, in other words, and been judged as a deficit. A deficit. What deficit? A moral deficit, symbolized by the abuse of a people's most sacred identity. It is one thing, in the Daniel mindset, for Babylon to exercise power over the conquered. I mean, that was part and parcel of the aftermath of war. It still is. We see it again just now in the fragile peace deal over the fate of Gaza. War and peace is a messy business. It will be a long time before the people of Gaza will be made whole, and that's under a best-case scenario. But at least a process toward this may finally be underway, and the U.S. government appears to deserve major credit. This is because some in the Israeli government have appeared willing, even motivated, to keep fighting in Gaza until no Palestinian remains who deny not only the existence of a place called Palestine, but of a people called Palestinians. This last Thursday, we laid to rest our dear Mary Ann Gray. And among the many things we celebrated about her life was her deep and abiding advocacy for the personhood and autonomy of the Palestinian people. She was vocal about it. She would be hopeful now at this moment of potential peace, but guarded about the well-being of the Gazans and their future. And this is what we witness here in the story of Daniel chapter 5. The Hebrews are captive. Babylon, like Gaza for the Gazans, is their open-air prison. But here, at the temple of Belshazzar, they are facing a wholesale erasure of their culture, their values, their faith, their identity. Yes, the symbol of this erasure is a defilement of temple relics, but the real subject of defilement is the Hebrew people themselves. They are debased, defamed, devalued. And this, the author of Daniel insists, is the meaning of what we'll call this morning the table of Belshazzar. The table of Belshazzar, the human cost of the privilege of wealth and power by some over others. And on one fateful night, a ruler and his cronies are required to answer for it. Now, what are we to make of all this? What is here for us? We can do as Marianne Gray and insist on the personhood of Palestinians. But what about here? What about here at home? On that night of the handwriting on the wall, Belshazzar is slain. The Persians, or as the text says, Darius the Mede, I explained that a little bit, they take Babel. And the table's gone. It is no more. But you and I know that Belshazzar's table is still around. It is still with us. That table. A very different table from this table that we put up every month for communion. A very different table from our table of fellowship whenever we gather and invite whoever would come. That table, Belshazzar's table, exists wherever injustice exists, wherever erasure exists, or immigrants are rounded up indiscriminately, or their children yanked from their mother's arms, or even U.S. citizens of color treated as suspect, as second class, taken, detained for hours, even days, where the poor are thrown under the bus of government belt tightening, or the integrity of schools or universities, or the health of citizens are considered expendable in the interests of the whims of an elect few. Belshazzar's table has a long reach, but our job, as broad as that gets, our job is to leave it, to leave that table and sit down somewhere else. Sit down at a place where all are valued, as Kathy told the children. All are children of God. All are welcomed alike. This is the table that we strive to set here at Cumberland. We fail, but we strive. This table is a work in progress, but it is our work because it is God's work. And this brings me to the last thing to wrestle with here, which was in fact the first thing, the hand. The hand is where we began, because the hand is where this wall of consequence begins. It is the handwriting on the wall. The hand appears before the words, right? The message, the judgment. The judgment is rooted, in other words. All judgments are. It is rooted in something, and the hand represents that. It is itself written into the fabric of this existence. And for Christians, it is rooted in holy God, the giver and redeemer of all. Now, this cannot be proven. We take these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. You see, we have to find our own place to stand here in these words, because we take these truths. Take is doing a lot of work here. We believe these truths to be self-evident. We choose these truths. We trust these truths. We entrust our lives to them. We place stock in them. Pick your working verbs. But the work is our assertion that these words are true, that they are universal, that they are given. Because it is possible, it is conceivable that they are not, that there is no objective moral truth. There are people, some of whom are in power in Washington, in the nation's capital, as we speak, who don't believe it, who don't think it's self-evident that all of us are of equal value and worth, who believe that some among us are undesirable, expendable, discardable, and that therefore they should not be among us. There's some who think this, and they are willing even now to say so, the quiet part aloud. But this is what we say, that this is our faith, rooted in the way of Jesus, in the testimony of the Hebrew prophets, in the apostolic witness to Jesus, in the long legacy of preached faith, in the best of social science and literature and human experience itself, as interpreted. It is our reasoned faith that leads us to this hopeful conclusion. If it is wrong, then we have no logical basis to act. If it is right, if we are correct, then we have no excuse not to act, to safeguard the integrity of each creature of God and all creatures of God as intrinsically worthy and valued and loved, imbued with rights for personhood and well-being. And this, friends, is the power and the purpose of the hand. It is the hand behind the words, the truth behind the deeds, the hand behind our written and lived out faith in these things. It is the grounding givenness of God and God's love, and nothing, so we profess, nothing shall prevail against it. Amen.